Hello, good evening, everyone. First of all, before we begin, I would request all of you to turn your cameras on. I would like to see all of you. Please turn your cameras on and as I mentioned, ensure that your name is correctly displayed on the screen. I can see most of your names are here. Right. Welcome. Good to see all of you here today. My name is Sakshi. I'm part of the environment education team at CSE, and I will be coordinating the program. So I am the person to contact if you have anything to ask, anything to discuss. And so today's session is an introductory session, as well as we have an expert from Down to Earth with us, Rajit. Welcome, Rajit. So he will be taking you through a few technical things. We will talk about that in a bit. People are still joining. So yeah, okay. I would like to begin by asking all of you know the program name, right? It's called Agenda for Survival. I would like to understand what are your perceptions about the name? What does it mean? Why have we called it Agenda for Survival? Any ideas, any thoughts? You can unmute yourself. You can put your questions in the chat box if you want. But why do you think this program has been called Agenda for Survival? What is the agenda here? And whose survival are we talking about? Any ideas on that?
Maybe we have reached the tipping point, so it's the survival for all.
Right. Thank you, Lipun. You're absolutely right about the tipping points. Okay, Anusha, to fight against global warming, right? Anything else anybody would like to add on? You can just use the chat box.
Survive, survival from environmental issues.
Okay, right. To find sustainable practices, Vaishnavi, right? Anything else anybody would like to add on? Okay, just give me a second to share my screen. So actually, most of you are partially correct in your understanding of why we're calling it Agenda for Survival. So it basically is a tool. It basically underscores the idea that now we have reached a point where we need a solid concrete plan. We need to tackle everything that's happening around us, everything that's happening to our environment, and it can't just be about big talks. It has to be in form of concrete actionable steps, and you all as people who are involved in the field in one way or the other, you are studying environment science, or you would be contributing to the society in other ways as citizens of the society. It the onus partly falls on you as well. So what can you do? How can you contribute? That is something that we're trying to explore through this program. Uh, yeah, I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Okay. So, what all will we cover in the program? We are covering three major themes in the program. One, we're going to talk about climate change as the overarching theme. I'm sure all of you know that if you've gone through the agenda. The theme is climate change, but we're also going to talk about, apart from the science, what are its interlinkages with different issues that we see at the local level, at the national level, and of course at the global level. And then we will come down to the environmental issues that you all can observe within your local community. You're going to examine them through everything that you learn throughout these sessions, through the lens that you acquired through these sessions. You're going to examine those issues and then prepare a report on that. So you're going to learn about the basics of environmental reporting. How do you write about something say a river pollution issue in your area. So how do you gather the data for it? How do you write about it? And then how do you ensure that this information reaches people? Because if you just write it and keep it with you, that doesn't help anybody much. So how can you disseminate this information? So these are the broad steps that we will be following in the program. And this is a broad timeline that was shared with you earlier also. So we are starting today, which is the first session on living the change, understanding climate impacts around us. So today we will be talking about climate change. We will be talking a lot about issues around it that usually tend to get ignored. And then we'll be talking a little bit about community action as well. Based on everything that we discussed today, we will be giving you a short activity, which is a social media activity on extreme weather events in your state. So I will explain this activity in a little bit more detail towards the end. And then on 27th of December, we will have the second session, which will be on environmental reporting and dissemination. So we'll talk about how do you write, how do you structure your arguments, what are the important things that you need to include, how do you propose potential solutions. We'll talk about all of that. Then, as I mentioned, there will be a mandatory writing assignment. And for that, you will have to choose from a list of topics that we give you. So we will give you a list of topics by next week, I'd say. And you just have to choose one topic. Let us know what your topic is. Based on that, we will assign you to a CSE mentor. So you will have one online interaction with your mentor somewhere around 10th of January. And then you can keep contacting them through email. You can be in touch with them and then accordingly prepare your report. And by the end of January, we are expecting you to submit your final report. So what will this report be like? You will be taking up any one issue within your local area, within your community. Obviously, the topics that we give you, they will be broad themes. So for example, one theme can be indigenous foods. One theme can be plastic waste management. I'm just giving broad examples as of now. So just to give you an idea. So you take up that issue and see where it fits in the topics that we have given you. Then you explore that problem in a little bit more detail. So we will tell you what are the sources that you can use. You can definitely contact us for any readings you want, for any other material that you need. You can contact us for that. You start your research. Then you start building an argument for how is that issue affecting your community, who all are being impacted the most, and is there any community initiative, any intervention possible that would be able to mitigate the impacts of that particular problem? So this would be the broad structure of the report that you write, the final assignment that you write. We will definitely share more a concrete structure with you as we go further, but this is the broad idea. So this is the program flow. I hope that's clear to everyone. Now, the mandatory requirements for the course, we have 3 sessions, as I mentioned. One will be your interaction with the mentors, where you'll be just discussing your project ideas, asking for their inputs on it. So one will be that engagement, and 2 online sessions. So your attendance will be mandatory in all of these 3 sessions. Then the social media activity that I'll be talking about at the end of the session, that is another mandatory requirement. And what is this end product? I will explain it to you in a little bit more detail at the end only, I think. And then obviously the final written assignment that you have to submit. So these are the requirements for the program. Okay, I will come back to this in a bit, to the social media activity in a bit. Right. So if you have any questions about the program, I'll be happy to take them. We can probably do that towards the end. But since Rajat is already here with us, let us quickly go to today's session. So Rajat is a climate journalist and a media trainer, and he has over 13 years of experience with several media organizations. And right now, he's the associate editor with Down to Earth, and he manages the climate data center here. So he has extensive experience with how the extreme weather events are impacting different parts of the country. How do we collect climate data? What do we do with it? So he is probably the person to ask all of your questions about this. And he's also the co-author of one of the most important publications that we have here annually, The State of India's Environment in Figures. It's the only data-driven annual book on climate in India. So, Rajat, over to you now. Welcome. And if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to put them in the chat box.
Thanks a lot, Sakshi. Thanks a lot, everybody, for being here on a weekday. I know it's evening. So one small request that I will have to all of you is if you can switch on your camera, because speaking to a screen is a very uncomfortable position to be in. It feels like I'm talking to myself over and over again. People who can't, they don't have to. But people who can, they should. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It's good to know that the audience is receptive enough. So some broad ideas that I would want to talk about before we begin the session. The first is an assumption. So I looked at the background of all the people who are joining us today. So almost all of you are either researchers or are studying environmental sciences right now. So what I will not do today is bore you with the science part of it, because I'm confident most of you either already know about it or you are in the process of knowing it. So I will keep that bit to the minimum. So the position with which I am talking to you right now is basically the experience of a practitioner. So I've been doing this for the past 12, 13 years. So I will talk to you about the challenges that we face on ground when we are talking about climate change and the impacts, even though the science is so emphatically out there and we know that things are going bad. My 7-year-old daughter knows that things are really bad in Delhi. Air pollution is there. She is missing her school very often these days because of the same. Still, we have a lot of people who doubt the science or try to look the other way around. I'm confident that will be the case with most of you as well, people around you. So I will talk about how we at Down to Earth and at CSE. So Down to Earth is the magazine wing of CSE. So we come up with a fortnightly magazine. So how we are discussing this and how are we approaching climate change in the organization that we are part of. So little to no science, more about how we are approaching this. So the way I've tried to structure this, I'll just share my screen. The way I've tried to structure it is fun only if we all interact with each other. So I have a lot of small little questions here and there, questions to which there are no single right answers. So no matter what you say or how you go about, there can be multiple answers to those questions. And that is the reason why the topic that we've come across is living the change, understanding climate impacts around us. It is not the science, but understanding the impacts and understanding how can we make our lives better in this changing world. So what we will do is there are 3 points that I'll be touching upon, and these are the 3 things that we will be going through the slides over the next 30 minutes or so. The first is, how do we see the complete picture? And this is something that I have seen. So Down to Earth is basically a group of journalists who are always too eager to talk about something sensational. CSE is a group of researchers who are always overcautious about things. So what happens then is, and it's a very interesting mix of people who are working together over here. Researchers try to work in their own space. So the CSE has a lot of these verticals, like there's a team which works only with water. You ask them anything about water, they are the right people to talk about it. But then they don't talk about the impacts of water, which is social, which is political. So they are similar is the case with air pollution. So the people who are working with air pollution, they're researchers, they're brilliant at what they're doing. They understand what PM10 is, PM2.5 is, and all the other things that come along with it. But they will stop at there And that is a challenge that even you as researchers or future researchers, because you have invested yourself into environmental sciences right now. So in most likely scenario, most of us who are here in this room would have a career in environmental sciences moving forward. So my urge is, or my suggestion is that when we are looking at what we are specializing in, all of us would be specializing in something eventually. We should be in a position to understand the complete picture as well. Basically, how every action has relations around it, and how everything is also impacting the challenge that we are trying to address over here. So we'll look at some ideas about how to connect, how we connect the dots over here. Then what we will also talk about is how do we make climate science more accessible? If you are already studying environmental sciences, my understanding is a lot of concepts that comes to you naturally because you are studying it. It doesn't come naturally to your friends, your family, your parents. So how do we make it so accessible? Like the answer that we were getting, that we are on the brink of the world in terms of climate. We have basically overburdened the environment, and we know the way we are developing is not sustainable enough in the long run. So I am fortunate enough that I have done most of my career, and by the time the doomsday predictions come, I might not be alive. But for most of you, that will not be the case. And what about the generations that come after and after and after? So how do we make it sustainable? So we'll talk about how to make climate science more accessible. And finally, what is also a part of your project work is basically how do we scale solutions to a community level? We are all of us, at least in this training, are invested in environment in some degree or the other. So we are in a better position in terms of our contribution individually towards environment. But how do we scale it up is another idea that we'll try to work around and come to some concrete solutions around it. So these are the three things that I'll be talking about: how to see the complete picture, how do we make climate science more accessible, and how do we scale solutions to a community level. So let's get started with the first one, connecting the dots. Why do we need to connect the dots? These are my understanding. So my understanding is that each and every climate change impact, it impacts us all. It does not matter which part of the world you are in. It does not matter which age group you are in. It does not matter which gender you are from. It also does not matter how much money you have or how little money you have. So climate change is affecting all of us, all and sundry. The degree might vary depending on how rich or poor we are, which part of the world we are in, but we are all vulnerable to climate change. And moving forward, if things do not get addressed soon, the impacts will only worsen. What we also know as a fact, and this is very clear to all of us, is that each and every human action has a climate impact. So we have to understand this correlation between the two. When we are studying climate change, when we are talking about climate change, and when we are trying to find solutions to the problems of climate change. The second point is what I have realized over the past 12, 13 years of my work is the fact that climate change is perhaps the most global local story, which basically means it's a fancy term to suggest that each one of us are vulnerable to it, but our experiences are very localized. I am in Delhi. I have a job, I am in an urban setup. So the way I am experiencing climate change, and by the fact that I'm in Delhi, the air pollution levels, the fact that it's getting extremely hot in the summer seasons, that causes heat waves and heat strokes. So the way I'm experiencing it, and the way most of us in this room, if we are from different parts of the country, so if you are from, let's say, a place like Goa, or in a coastal place like in Bengal, someplace, your experience of climate change would be very localized and very personal. And the way you cope with it would also be very personal and localized at the same time. So in a way, it's like a class punishment that we are all in. So it's a global problem. It does not matter which part of the world we are in. We are going to face the brunt of climate change. But at the same time, the way we are experiencing it is a very personal understanding, which is very important to understand when we're looking for solutions moving forward. And the third thing, and this is extremely important. So these 2 points are important when we're trying to understand the problem. So when we're trying to frame the problem of climate change, and when we are again trying to find the solution. So they have to be local enough to have a proper bearing. And as Sakshi talked about, how do we mitigate it, or a more immediate crisis is how do we adapt to it? So in that sense, we have to keep this in mind. The fact that we are all vulnerable to it, the fact that each and every one of us, whatever we are doing, even this Zoom call that we are on right now, we are using internet, we are using electricity, we are investing time. So all of those have some ramification on the climate and vice versa. And keeping that in mind, finding solutions become much more easy. So with this context, let's try to do some assignment, two examples. I would want each one of you to come in. So these are two very distinct ideas or challenges that we face when we are working in our organization. The first is in 2011. This is a very landmark judgment that Supreme Court gave in 2011. What had happened was there was a village in Punjab. In that village, there was a pond, a local pond, a village pond, which was almost dead by then. So people started constructing houses on it. So there were two people who had a tiff between them, and they decided to go to the district magistrate to say that, see, this person is building a house on a pond. Then that got escalated. It reached to the commissioner. Then from there, it reached to the High Court. Then from there, it reached to the Supreme Court. So the fight started in around 2003. By the time it reached Supreme Court looked at it and said, village commons, any form of common, be it land, be it water bodies, everything, they should be protected, and no amount of encroachment is allowed on them. So in 2011, the Supreme Court said, so there are already a lot of laws around it, but in 2011, Supreme Court very emphatically said that no form of encroachment is allowed. It went on to say that there are three usual excuses that people give to justify their encroachment. One is that long duration of occupation. Like for generations, we've been here and we did not know that we shouldn't have been here. That is one thing. The second is that we have already invested so much money into developing the encroached area. So what do we do about it? And the third is that we have got a lot of political connections. So basically politicians, to satisfy their vote share or vote bank, to please their vote bank, they say that it's all right. So what they do is they try to regularize the encroachments. So the Supreme Court emphatically said these three things are not the basis for regularization. It said long duration of occupation, significant expenditures on construction, and political connections cannot be grounds for regularization. And since then, 460 High Court judgments have been given on the basis of this judgment that came in 2011. So these are the three factoids. So last month, one of our reporters traveled to this village to understand what is the ground reality, and we are working on a story around it. So what I want you guys to do, if these are the three statements that you have, what do you think has happened as a fallout of the ruling? Do you think it's a good ruling? Is it a wonderful ruling, or is it a bad ruling? And can you try to identify the intended and unintended impacts of it? So you can take 2 minutes to understand it. What I'm asking is it a good ruling? And do you think it actually made things better on ground? I know the answer because our reporter has recently visited, so I know the answer to this. But I want you to spend some time understanding what or thinking whether this verdict was a positive verdict or a negative verdict in terms of implementation. This is basically how connecting of dots come into picture. If you have anything, you can either unmute or you can type it out. Either is fine by me. I'll wait for 2 minutes over here. What is the outcome of this 2011 Supreme Court verdict? You can either unmute and talk, or you can also type in the chat. We'll wait for 2 minutes. Anybody wants to give it a try? Or it's too complicated, then I can give you the solution and we can move on to something else. Okay, I have something in chat. Let me just check. It's a positive verdict, says Lipun, as further judgment works on sets. Fair enough. It's a positive judgment. That's basically what all environmentalists in 2011 talked about. They said that this is a landmark watershed judgment, and this is going to go a long way in protecting the commons across India. In fact, there are estimates say around 15 to 25% of India's land mass is what we're talking about when we talk about commons. So 15 to 25% of India's land mass is basically what is at stake over here. Any other thing that you possibly can think of? Another 15 seconds, 20 seconds. If you can also unmute and talk about it. It's a good verdict. Can land be declared commons which has already been built on displacing people? Perfect. That's interesting. Anusha talks about how it is also displacing people. Dependent on its implementation, adverse impact shall be issued to accommodate poor. Perfect. Ola Hima Bindu talks about it's a good rule for upcoming projects in the future, but it might adversely impact the already encroached area. Fair enough. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I think we have broadly understood what we are talking about. So what we found when Down to Earth visited that place, so between the period of 2003 to 2011, there were around 300 people in that village, the village that we're talking about. 80 of them had already constructed houses over there. So what happened immediately after the judgment was that the local administration came and they locked the houses because that's what the judgment says. But the sarpanch, so there have been, I think, around 4 sarpanches who've come to power since. None of the sarpanch dared demolish those houses because they said it's bad vote bank for the vote bank. So the houses are still there. The pond that was there has shrunk further, and there is a lot of infestation from water hyacinth. So basically, there is practically no water left over there. And as a result of the 460 judgments, High Court judgments that have come, and there have been a lot of state governments have also initiated a lot of processes. What has been found now is that the poor, people from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, people who belong to the nomadic pastoral communities like Gujars, so they were displaced because of this. So this assumption that the Supreme Court had, and which rightfully many of you had also pointed out, that it is only the rich and influential who are encroaching upon, is not completely true. And it has a massive social implications as well because of this. I'll move on to the next example. So the statement is, and this is something that we are all very much aware of, several clothing brands around us, I know Decathlon does it, I know H&M does it, are now claim that they're recycling plastics to make garments. They're using some portion of the garment is made out of plastic. So they're trying to recycle plastic. So what I want you to understand, I'm confident all of you would have seen it at some shopping mall or the other, or some place that you've gone to. The question is it good for the environment? And the second is, if the cost of a normal apparel, be it a shirt, and the cost of a recycled shirt, if they are the same, which one will you buy? I'm saying that a recycled shirt costs 100 rupees and a normal or an ordinary shirt also costs 100 rupees. Which one will you buy? I would expect more answers over here. Is it good for the environment? And which shirt will you eventually buy if they cost exactly the same? You can either type it out or speak up. Do you think it's a good, is it good for the environment? This idea that textile industry is now using or taking up plastics, and we all know how problematic plastics are for the environment. So is it a good practice? And would you invest in a shirt which costs exactly the same if it is made out of recycled products? Navneet says it's good for the environment. Will you buy it, Navneet? If the two things cost exactly the same? Gopika says it isn't a good practice. Interesting. Sneha feels it is good. Gopika, can you possibly say why is it not a good practice? Vishwanath says it's good for the environment.
Because
Current
after
life cycle. Okay.
we will dump that into the surrounding itself.
I'm seeing nobody really wants to comment on whether they're going to buy the shirt or not, which is an interesting thing. I think either we don't like shirts in this group. It's good only if the impact on the environment is positive. What will happen if they are not in use afterwards? Interesting. I won't buy. Lipon is very clear. He wouldn't buy it. Anusha says, Adan, they use a very small percentage to greenwash. Interesting. Yes, fair enough. The recycling of plastic to make a product is good to the environment. However, if the garment is made of plastic, harms human health, they will cause other issues. Fair enough. Though the recycled plastic is the same in the environment, should they be disposed of correctly? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Finally going to throw it in the surroundings. I'm going to burn it up. Fair enough. So my answer to this is already there. Yes, recycled products is good to buy. So somebody talked about the concept of greenwashing, and this is a problem that we are facing increasingly in media. So greenwashing is this phenomenon where big brands pick up on things that they think will sell. So if you remember, or you might not remember because you might have been too young then. So when I was in at your age, the best thing to do was feeding poor kids. So no matter what we bought or where we went, we would be charged a rupee or 2 rupees extra, saying that it is being used to feed poor kids. That obviously remains, but now the new buzzword is environment. So a lot of these companies are now jumping onto this bandwagon of recycling. So what happens when we are changing the recycling, or when we're changing, so when we take plastic, which is a plastic waste, so India, as we know, has reasonably good legal framework to handle plastic waste. It has a reasonably good legal framework to handle plastic waste. We know the implementation is not good. We are hoping that it will get better moving forward because we have the EPR thing that is going to kick in from this year, from 2025, where companies are duty bound to take a portion of what they are pushing out as part of their recycling plans. So maybe it will get better moving forward. So we know that textile does not have equally stringent frameworks in India, rightfully so, because textile is not as harmful to the environment as plastics are. So the moment we take some plastic and we convert it into a textile, a garment, what we're doing is we are changing the kind of waste that will be generated at the end of life. That is something that somebody already rightfully pointed out. So, and at the end of the day, when that shirt, which is made out of plastic, some part of it is made out of plastic, when that becomes torn or worn out, and when you're basically throwing it off as a waste, it will be treated as a textile garment and not as a as a plastic waste. So it is definitely not good for the environment. What we also know increasingly, and this is something that is happening extensively. So I think in 2022, for the first time, both H&M and Decathlon in Netherlands, they were asked to take away an entire season's worth of clothes off the shelf because they claimed that they were environment friendly. So they used the term, I remember Decathlon had used, and they use that in India as well. Eco-conscious design has gone into making those products. So what Netherlands said, that you are basically fooling people and you are basically making them buy the product thinking that they're doing something good. So if I don't want to buy the shirt, but then I think, oh, this is good for the environment, let me just buy it. So what they said was that this is in a way forcing people to buy things, or in a way influencing the things that they would otherwise not buy and forcing them into buying it. So they were asked to remove the entire seasons worth of things which they claimed were environmentally viable or environmentally conscious, and they were also fined because of that. So this is something that we have to be very careful about when we are dealing with things that claim to be environmentally good, and a lot of things around us claim to be environmentally good. So that is another thing which basically is very important when we're dealing with environment and environmental things. Now let's move on to another point, and how do we make climate science more accessible? So there are three examples that I think are very interesting. The first is this, in 2019, so around 5 years back, Guardian UK, they said that enough is enough. The terms that we use when we are reporting climate change are too weak and too neutral to have any impact on people. So what they said, we'll change the language that we're using. So there were two phrases that they came up with, and they said that we'll change it. One is the phrase climate change. They said climate change is a very neutral word to use. So they said in our reporting from now on, so now, since 2019, they said that from now on, we'll use any of these three words depending on where it fits correctly. One is climate crisis. Basically, we are saying that there is a crisis that is brewing. It is not just climate change. Climate change is as is. We all know that. We are all studying climate environment in our own way. So we know if we wait long enough, if we wait 40 years, 100 years, 200 years, climate is changing and climate will change. It's a natural process. But what is happening right now is that it is changing very rapidly, and it is not changing because of nature, but because of the way we are living. So it is anthropogenic, it is human induced. So they said it'll be climate crisis or climate emergency, or even more strong, a climate breakdown. So these are the three phrases that they're using. Similarly, for global warming, they said that we are not going to use the word global warming anymore. Warming is a very lukewarm kind of a word. But they said we are going to use global heating everywhere. So these are the two changes that they did. So how the words that we are using has a ramification in terms of how we go about understanding things. A slightly different idea. So before World War II, before World War II, all countries had a Ministry of War. They did not have a Ministry of Defense. And Ministry of War was a phrase that was used across all countries everywhere. After World War II, when people were really fed up with wars, especially after the use of the atom bomb, so people were really fed up with the very concept of nation states or countries and boundaries, and they were like, this does not really yield anything. And science is basically making us fight better or fight more aggressively, which basically means more people are dying. So the phrase was changed from Ministry of War to Ministry of Defense. Defense basically means somebody is hitting out at me, and in defense and in retaliation, I'm saving myself. And that fueled and went in a big way to look at the army as a part which helps protect our country. So then the idea of nationalism and the idea of war, they were both brought together post Second World War. And one of the key reasons behind it was the change of the name that was used to define Ministry of War as Ministry of Defense. So similar is the thing that Guardian is trying to do over here. So most of the words that we are using, because these words are coined by researchers, many of you might in the future go ahead and also come up with such phrases, coin such new phrases, which are happening because climate is an evolving science as well. So try to make it a little more alarming. Try to use, when you're writing, phrases that are much more action-oriented so that we can understand the crisis that is brewing. The second example, and this is something that we tried doing, and we have, in a way, been able to find a solution to that. So 2 years back in 2022, so Kiran Pandey is another person who works in the data center with me. So Kiran Pandey and we were discussing how do we quantify extreme weather events in India. Do we have time? How much time do we have? Do we have 5-10 minutes more? Yeah. So what we decided was we were looking at the different units or metrics to quantify extreme weather events. So can you possibly think of the commonly used metrics that are used to quantify extreme weather events? If you can type it out in chat, or if you want to unmute and talk, that is also perfectly fine. What are the usual metrics that you think of when you think of extreme weather events? How do we, if I want to capture extreme weather event of a place, how do I capture it? What is the basic unit? AQI is one. Okay, fair enough. AQI would be for pollution, but then, okay, that's a specific kind. It's an air pollution is not really an extreme weather event, but I understand what you're saying, Vishwanath. Any other thing? What is the unit that we can come up with? Or what is the commonly used units that you have come across when you are thinking of extreme weather events? Wind speeds, okay. We're trying to quantify extreme weather events, BOD, okay. Rise in temperature, interesting. Yes, Vishwanath. A little context, extreme weather events are basically, we're talking about floods, we're talking about heat waves, we're talking about Richter scale, that's earthquake. Earthquake is not an extreme weather event. It's an extreme event. It's not a weather event. CO2 detective gadgets and heat waves. Interesting and interesting. Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. So what we came up with, and we thought tornadoes is an extreme weather event. Okay, you are basically counting. So what we came up with is, we said that, how do we make our audience understand the scale of the challenge? So we said we'll count the number of days some part of India or any part of India is experiencing an extreme weather event. So the unit that we thought was that the unit is not the intensity of the extreme weather event. The unit is also not how many people are dying because of the extreme weather event. The unit is definitely not how many times the extreme weather event has happened in India. The unit that we came up with is how many days in a year are we experiencing extreme weather events. So what we did, we came up with a dashboard, and we started it in 2022. And we said that we'll come up with the idea, the basic unit of our database will be the number of days, and the numbers are appalling. So this year we've looked at it from January till September. So we found, so there were 274 days between January and September. We found that on 255 days, that is roughly 93% days, some part of India was experiencing a extreme weather event. So that roughly translates to, and this, I'm taking a liberty as a journalist. You might, as a researcher, say that it's something that you can frown upon. What we talk about is, we say that it is a disaster a day. India is experiencing a disaster a day. And that basically gives you an idea of the scale of the crisis that is there. If you see this graph that you have on the left, at the bottom, there are these bar graphs that you can see. The color tells you, so each bar is for the individual day. So there are 255 bars over here. The height tells you number of states that experienced extreme weather event on that particular day. And the color tells you what kind of extreme weather event. So in January, it is less, and it is mostly blue. That is cold wave or snowfall. These would be the two things. Then in red is heat wave, and then lightning and storms, and then gray is heavy rainfalls, floods, and landslides. So basically, that is the unit that we came up with, and that basically gives to a layperson a fair idea of how big the crisis is. A third example that is also equally important is, this is a question that increasingly people who are practicing or who are in the climate scene today, they were experiencing, and they were trying to come up with an answer. And surprisingly enough, India Meteorological Department came up with the answer earlier this year. In 2024, they did that. So increasingly, the night temperatures are also, in fact, the night temperatures in most places are increasing at a faster rate than the day temperature. So the minimum temperatures, in fact, are increasing at a faster rate than the maximum temperature. And what health practitioners have been talking for a very long time is basically, if you don't sleep enough at night, in the morning, your body is not rested enough. And if you in the morning go back to a heat wave kind of a situation, there is a very high chance that you would have a heat stroke. So it is not just the morning temperature that is at play over here. It is also the at night, because of high temperatures, you could not rest. And when I say you, think of the outside laborer who works, the construction worker who works outside the entire day, or the thela wala on the road who is outside the entire day, who doesn't have a very good house or a properly insulated house. The impact it has on them. So now there was no way of ascertaining or quantifying this. So what IMD did earlier this year, it came up with a new metric, and the metric is called warm nights. So on the left-hand side, this is basically the number of days India experienced warm nights. It obviously happens in March, April, May, June. These are the summer seasons, relatively warm periods. So these are the states which also experience warm nights. So what IMD says, warm night is basically if you have had a heat wave-like situation in the morning, and your night temperature is also higher than what it should be on that day, then it will be considered a warm night. So it's a new classification which helps us talk about a phenomenon that many of us already knew, but we could not talk about it because we did not have a phrase to coin it and to explore or talk about in a coherent way before. So these are the three examples about how can we make climate science more accessible, think about it when you're learning or understanding or coming across difficult terms. I'm not saying that you have to dumb all of these down at all times. But when you're trying to reach out to people to bring about a change, you have to talk it in language that everyone understands. So that is basically where you have to at least simplify it and talk in a language that makes sense to most of the people. The last peg is, how do we scale solutions to a community level? And another question. So can all of us think of one individual green habit or a habit individually that we are very proud of and we think it's good for the environment? And can we think of how it can be scaled up? So whatever that green habit that you're doing today at an individual level, can you basically pass it on to, let's say, 10 people or 20 people or 100 people? I'll give you one example. This is a very personal example. This is something that I've tried doing. So I love cycling. I have always loved cycling. It has got nothing to do with my health. It is not, it's a healthy, it is not a healthy choice. It is something that I love, enjoy, and I've always enjoyed. So what I started doing a couple of years back, I tried cycling down to office. So my office and my house, the distance is around 16 kilometers. So I could not do it on a regular basis. So I tried doing it a couple of days and I realized that I might end up in the hospital before I can actually make any change. So I stopped doing that. So what I started doing instead was that now on Saturdays and Sundays, I get up early morning and I cycle down to meet a friend of mine, whoever is willing to get up that early. So I cycle down to them, we chit chat, we have breakfast. So basically for that meeting, so friends who are close to me, I have a breakfast session with them and then I cycle back. So it's basically by 9:30, I'm back home when the traffic is not that peak on Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm back home by then. So how did I scale it up? I do it because I really like it. So how did I scale it up? I wouldn't say that it is only me. So there are a lot of other people who also came forward and we talked about it. So we have been able to, my society is such that when you enter from a gate, there is an underground parking. And at the fag end of our society, by design, you have the exit for that underground parking. So you can actually go inside and you can exit from the other end of the society. And that is also the exit gate for our society. So what we've done so far is the area around the play area. So the green belts, we don't allow people to take their cars over there. So we actually have physical blockades over there. So you can either park your car outside the society, or you can go in the underground and you can park it over there. So around the play areas, we have already made it car free. So cars are not allowed inside the society. Beyond the environmental advantage, which might not be a lot right now, what we have realized is that our kids can move around more freely because we know that there are no 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles, 4-tired vehicles inside our society. So it's easier for kids to move around. What we are trying to do right now is we are also trying to make the entire society vehicular free. But we know that there is an added cost to it in terms of, so our society has basically 26 stars. So we have got from A to Z. So there are 26 stars over there. It's a reasonably big society. So not everybody can walk. So my grandparents or your grandparents cannot walk from the main gate to their building. So if I say no cars, that would not really make sense. So we are trying to come up with a system. We are thinking of investing in e-cycles, maybe we're thinking of getting golf carts, maybe, but they would require investments. So this is one way, something that I love, cycling. We are trying to scale it up to a community level. Can you take 2-3 minutes and think of one green habit that you have and ideas where you can scale it up? You don't have to do it right away. It might sound very outlandish right now because individual initiatives happen at an individual level. Community initiatives, you need more people to make it work. Implementation is very free over there. So can you possibly think of one green habit that you're proud of, personal green habit that you're proud of? Can we just type that out right now? Gardening practice. Plants, aesthetics, interesting. Rainwater harvesting, perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm assuming that you're doing all of this, Shravani, right now, gardening practice, or you like the idea of birds and rainwater harvesting. Any other idea? Climate smart agriculture, interesting. Okay, lovely. Climate smart agriculture in your setup, if you are from an urban space, it might not be a very smart decision to spend time on. If you're from a rural area, that makes absolute sense, Sneha. Navneet is talking about waste material usage for making products. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Composting. Yes. Okay. Shravani says yes. Lovely. Any other things? Good. 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 Saying no to plastic bags at local vendors and vegetable markets, carrying my own bag. Okay, lovely. Saving water. Yep. We have, in fact, just adding to what Rishabh has written, we actually have trolleys for each of our towers right now, those physical trolleys. So if you're getting a lot of things, you don't really need plastic bags. You can just place it on it and you can just roam it and take it around. Not that it has been very successful. We tried it a year back. Maintenance is an issue. And not everybody likes to ferry their trolley around from the main gate to their house. So, but that was another thing that we tried and it did not work out the way we wanted to. So we are thinking of tweaking it again. Do not use and throw pens. Interesting. I love fountain pens. Vaishnavi, I'm with all out and I understand what you're saying. I like fountain pens. I use a lot of fountain pens. Gifting a jute bag on small celebrations to families and friends. Interesting. Yep. So I'll just end over here. So this was my last slide. So if you have any questions, query, you can definitely reach out to me over here. And on this thought, I'll just give the space back to Sakshi. Thanks a lot, Sakshi.
Thank you, Rajat. That was very, very insightful, and I'm sure it got your minds running in the direction of what can you take up in your projects, how can you incorporate everything that we have discussed today with Rajat. And you can definitely reach out to him if you have any questions. You can put your questions here in the chat box. But before we do that, I think it might be a good idea to take a group picture of sorts. So if you can turn your cameras on, we will quickly take a screenshot. We'll share it with all of you. So everybody who can turn their cameras on, please do that. We'd love to see all of you who were here in the session today. Wonderful. Great. Okay, are we all ready? Okay, so let's, Tushita will be taking the screenshot, I think. So, cheese. If anybody wants to turn their camera on now, please do that. We'll quickly take one more if anybody was left out. Okay. Great. Wonderful. So thank you so much for participating in that photograph. And now I think if I can request you, Rajat, to quickly give a brief overview of how the dashboard that you showed us, the extreme weather events dashboard that you showed us, how that works, because that will be a very important part of your activity, the social media activity that you're going to do after you go back today. So we'll just take a quick look at what the dashboard is and how can you navigate it. So if you want to look at extreme weather events on a particular day, in a particular state, how do you do that? So we'll share the link here with us, here with you on the chat box. How do you open the dashboard? We'll share the link with you. We'll also put it in the WhatsApp group. Let's just quickly look at how it works.
Possibly can't. Yep. Yeah. So this is the extreme weather events dashboard that we came up with. We started in 2022. So there are two components to it. One is the analysis that we come up with. This is a report that we come up every year just before the conference of parties. I don't have to explain it over here. I'm confident most of us know. It's basically the place where all the heads of the world sit and try to find solutions to the climate problem. So this is basically what the report looks like. You have one report for 2022, 2023, and 2024 to understand how the analysis is. And over here on this website, you have the raw data. I'll just open the dashboard once. This is just an image on the homepage because it takes a little bit to open it. I would request all of you to use a laptop or a computer when you're doing this. This is not mobile friendly because it has a lot of data and we've not been able to customize or optimize it for mobile phones right now. So this is how it looks. I'll just make it full screen. So there are two filters that you can work on. The first filter is over here. So you can basically jump between 2022, 2023, and 2024. So this gray band that you have on the left-hand side, it basically talks about how different states of the country are experiencing extreme weather events. So when you hover your mouse on top of it, it tells you how many days Uttar Pradesh experienced extreme weather events, or Uttarakhand did, or your state would have, Kerala did. On the right-hand side, you have another filter, which is basically, it allows you to filter and go inside the months. So if I want to see what happened in 2024 January, I can click on this. So in January, only 15 states had extreme weather events, and these are the 15 states that are listed over here. The first band that we have is loss and damage. We are looking at 4 parameters: human deaths, cropped area affected in hectares, that is the unit that we're using, houses that have been damaged because of extreme weather events, and the number of animal deaths that have happened because of extreme weather events. The straight line that you see at the bottom, that is basically the number of extreme weather event days that have happened. So each extreme weather events, how many days it has happened. So cold wave and cold days happened on all the 31 days of January in some parts of the country. So basically, where did it happen? If I want to see, let's say we go to January 1st, and we see that cold wave and cold days happened in 6 Indian states on 1st of January. They were Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, and Rajasthan. Similarly, you can do it for all the months. One interesting exercise that Tushita, Sakshi, we also work with school teachers and school students. So I know a lot of school teachers across India are now using this to talk about climate change to kids as young as 7, 8, 9 years old. So what they do is, so let's say I'm not born on Feb, but I'm assuming that I'm born on Feb, and I'm born on Feb 9th. So on my birthday, cold waves happened in 4 states of India. So you can expand it a little further. My best friend, so let's assume Sakshi is my best friend, and her birthday is on 4th of Feb. So on that day, there were lightning and storms that happened. So basically, you can use this extreme weather event database to look at different kinds of extreme weather events that are happening across India, number of days it is happening, and you can actually analyze it for 2022, 2023, and 2024 for different parts of the country. And for an in-depth analysis, the analysis that we do, you can also download this PDF that we update once every year. So the dashboard is updated once every month or once every 2 months. The PDF is done once every year, and it has a month-wise, it has a extreme weather event type-wise, and a season-wise analysis of what was the temperature like, which you can't see over here. What was the rainfall like? So if we look at June in 2024, what was the temperature like? Which parts of India had excessively high temperature? What was the rainfall like? And then what was the extreme weather event like? This is basically taken from the dashboard that we created. I'll stop over here. Sakshi, does it make sense? Yep.
Yes, thank you so much, Rajit. I hope that gives you an idea of what all the dashboard contains, all information can you extract out of it. I have also put the link for the report that Rajit mentioned. It's there in the chat box. You can simply click on the link and download it if you want for reference. So now coming to what the activity is,
Can I just...
please.
Yeah, Lipun, you have sent me a direct message saying that you have a question. Can you just unmute and ask me, Lipun?
Sir, you said something around in London or in some area they changed the name of climate change to climate crisis or emergency. So using that phrase, doesn't that lead to the people or the masses for anxiety, all those things, climate anxiety, all those phrases doesn't come out?
So it's a very valid question. So this is one of the reasons why in Down to Earth we've not yet started using the phrase. But what we have also realized is that climate anxiety also comes from the physical discomfort that we're feeling in our everyday life. So in a bit to dumb down experiences, if we are using not neutral, more neutral words, basically climate change is a very neutral word. It doesn't say anything about what is happening and the crisis that is there. So it's a valid point that you've made, Lipun, but I think now is not the time to play excessively safe when we are actually disseminating or trying to bring about action. Action only comes when we are genuinely interested in it. So there are two ways of being interested. One is, in fact, last week itself, we had a group of students from University of Chicago, students as young as you. They were all undergraduate students, and they asked me the same question. They said that in our part of the world, we don't really have to worry about these things. So why should we care? Anybody from India, does not matter which part of India you're from, does not matter whether you're in an urban setup or a rural setup, you would never ask that question. So basically, how do we sensitize everyone? So maybe over there, you would want to use something more aggressive, because time is, we are losing out on time. And thanks to the pandemic, we know that a lot of the progress that we've made in the recent past have actually been reversed in terms of poverty eradication, in terms of deaths, in terms of development. So how do we reverse that? So maybe it's a personal answer. Now is the time to be more aggressive. Lipin, does it answer that?
Yeah, it does make sense. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that question, Lipin. Okay, I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about the assignment that you're supposed to do, and then we can close the meeting. So, yeah, the assignment is to research, understand a little bit more about the extreme weather events in your state. So the idea is that you go to the dashboard, you locate for the past 3 months. So the past 3 months that the data is available for is July to September 2024. So for these 3 months, what are the different type of events that have occurred in your state? What was their frequency like? Then which event was the most common in this period, and why do you think it was? Can you relate it to anything else that you have studied or researched so far? And finally, how did it impact the state as a whole? So the data you can get from the dashboard, the analysis will be your own. So if you want to include any personal experience that you have, anything that you have faced, your family has faced, your community, your friends, you can include those in the impact part of it, and then come up with a narrative as to what was the situation like in this period, July to September, for your state in terms of extreme weather events. So once you do that, you will have a week to do this. Today is 20th. You can send in your work to me by 27th of December. So you'll have to do two things. One, you'll have to send it to me on my email ID. I'll put that in the chat box. And the second is you will have to post it to a social media account. You can post it on Instagram if you want, and tag our young environmentalist handle, Instagram handle. We'll also put that in the chat box. So two steps: one, you send it to me on my email, and two, you post it on social media and you tag young environmentalist. Now we are giving you lot of leeway in how do you want to present your analysis. So if you want to do it in a text format, you can prepare a brief report sort of a thing. If you want, you can do that. If you want to prepare an infographic, you can do that. That's totally up to you. If you're very comfortable with Canva and designing and all of that, you can do an infographic. If you're comfortable speaking in front of the camera, you can prepare a video. Just record a video of you explaining everything, and you can do that. Or it can be just in a text format. So that we are leaving up to you. But you have to take these three aspects. So the number and type of events, which event was most common, and how did it impact the state. So this is the assignment. I hope yeah, I'll just come to question now. Okay, okay. If you want to post it on LinkedIn, you can definitely do that. Maybe share the link of the post with me on WhatsApp. That would work. Tanisha, can you please be specific? What would you want me to repeat? I can send you the 3 aspects, the 3 parameters that we've given you. I can send it to you on the group, on the WhatsApp group that we have. So you don't need to worry about that. The dashboard link is already here. If you do not have an Instagram account, whichever social media account you have, you can use it. You can simply share the link with me in that case. You can post it however you want, wherever you want. Just tag us and share the link with us. I hope that helps. Any other questions? All right, so I think we can then close the session here. Just one reminder, I had shared a Google form in the group to get all of your details. If anybody has not filled that form, please ensure that you fill that, because that is the only proper information, record of information that I have, in as in which institution are you from, who has nominated you, and all of that. So please fill this form. The link is there in the chat box. Anusha, the link is already there. You can refer to that. And Chirag, the email ID is also mentioned here, sakshi.unyal@cseindia.org. It's just like a couple of messages above the one that you've sent. Okay. If you have any other questions, any other things that you want to clarify, please feel free to contact me. And now we will be meeting on 27th of December at the same time, 5 p.m. So I hope that this session was fruitful for you. You learned some things, you got a few ideas about your assignment. Thank you so much, Rajit. This was a wonderful interaction with you. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you on 27th. Have a good night. Shravani, I would suggest you keep it brief. So say about a page or so, not more than a page. If you're using the text format, definitely not more than a page. As brief as possible, but you do communicate all the important points. So we've not set a word limit as such, but maybe a page if that's what you're looking for. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on 27. Bye-bye.